Good morning, everybody. How we doing today? Well, it's Easter. So first off, happy Easter to all of you. Blessings, peace, safety, health, and wealth to everybody, And at the end of the day, when my brother next door can feed his family and I can feed mine, I can get my kids medication and my neighbor across town can also feed his children. When we're not all fighting for scraps, when we have some strength of middle class, we will also have some strength of purpose, some unity. It's just so instrumental to us finding a better way for doing things. And here in America, boy, we don't even have respect or sacred ground for our own history and heritage, let alone the history and heritage of the world. And we've lost connection with our human selves and pasts. And I've often said before that the average American's often become more American than human. And the old tomato can analogy, where if you have a shelf of canned tomatoes and there's a section of cans saying, "I'm not a tomato, I'm a Del Monte, I'm a Dole." To wear that label more than the ingredients of the can is a blind man. You've been lied to your whole life. And nationalism and the small-minded thoughts that divide us, we can let all that stuff slip away once we build a better world for all men, women, and children. And Christ would expect and want that of us. And yet it's funny how many of the people who consider themselves pious and righteous and conservative moral-wise end up being really more conservative fiscally and don't want to see money going to people in need, the mentally ill, the homeless, the destitute. My wife works with the homeless in a city of over 100,000 people. It's a population probably 50 to 100 people that come and go. A lot of drugs and addiction, a lot of abuse. And it's a fight to scrimp every penny out of the county and the city just to keep food in some people's stomachs. And it's a sad testament on where our priorities are and how far we are away from the utopia that this planet was intended for us to be. We are spirits made flesh, here to eat, dance, drink, celebrate. Look at the stars, light a fire, and be communal, and to live and touch and feel and interact. And it's a 75-year flesh vacation, I've often said. And here on Easter morning, I'd like to see us all just have more empathy in what we post, what we read, how we see the world. My good friend Ken Micallef had a bit of a tiff on his Jazz Vinyl Lovers Facebook group. Some people posted some rather insensitive memes and posts in regards to jazz. John Coltrane, Love Supreme, I think there was a couple others as well. And he responded with indignance. And I think that's a fair response to desecrate not just jazz, but one of the most sacred records in the canon by one of the most spiritual prophets of a people that represents a large chunk of your own history. It's a bit like nailing a bald eagle to the cross or pissing on Mount Rushmore. It's your history nonetheless, America. White Americans are not. This is our history. And jazz is such an interesting looking glass into the powers of oppression. And the deeper I've dug into jazz, the more you see the virtuosity, the best instruments, the best musicians, the best studios, the best paying labels. It's all in the white side of things. And yet, in time and in retrospect, it's all the jazz black greats who have ascended to becoming the royalty of this genre. And it's not about their instruments or the small labels they were on. It's not about the color of their skin. It's about the history of their people as a community and how it pours out of them when they're given this vehicle that allows you to improvise emotion. What a natural outlet for my pent-up frustration and aggression. An art form that doesn't demand I stay within the lines and play a song as the writer intended it to do. I'm given license to recreate with every breath I take my place in this world, my stake in life, my lot. And jazz documents the voice of generations of black males speaking with such a high level of integrity and honesty, and driven by such a high level of desperation, that what's lacking in their budgets and their equipment and the label's ability to market these records, it's all made up for in posterity by the depth of their conviction. And it's not something you can fake. It's not a mask you can put on. It's only the genuine expression of desperation. And in the black community, it exists in the people for centuries. And it's not to say, as I've said many times, white people can't have desperation. They absolutely can. A guy like Chet Baker or Bill Evans speaks all kinds of sorrow. But to desecrate sacred jazz artists is doing such a great disservice to one of the most incredible art forms the humankind has ever invented. It's really an unparalleled expression. It's not limited to what's on the page. What I felt when I compose it may not be what I feel as I replay it today, but yet it's always going to have a direct link to where I am at right now, meaning every time I play it, it's going to have a new interpretation. The notes, the scales, they're just signposts. They're just a map, okay? And I know that on this map, I need to take a left in 6 miles, go up around a couple hills, down through this valley, take a right, and I need to double back and come back through this main stretch of open road. And so you know the different places where you gotta turn. Yet how you decide to handle those curves, hills, slopes, and angles, you can be creative with that every time you drive that road. Some days I just feel relaxed and I just want to smooth my way through these hills. Some days I'm going to be Jeremy Clarkson and I'm just going to lay back and put a little e-brake into it and throw my rear end out. Other days I'm going to be James May and I'm not even going to break the speed limit. There's no sound barrier here. We're tootling along. You know, I mean, there's days where you just want to go 90 miles an hour. There's days where your emotional makeup and content and response to this experience overpowers. And there's days where it's subdued. And sometimes even other facets can come to light. And it's by no coincidence that the avant-garde and that later intellectual movement of jazz happens incrementally as the level of oppression decreases. And by the time the 40s and 50s have come along, a place like Detroit has a number of black schools, highly regarded black schools. Chicago has some highly regarded black schools, turning out highly educated black musicians. And that intellect, that coming from a place of less desperation, it fuels music that has more intellect and thought and less feeling. I'm not just playing the blues to get out of my rut. I have something I want to show and teach and illustrate and innovate. And it's all such an interesting part and of the makeup of American history. And so, Ken, kudos to you for sticking to your guns. And for all of you who challenge what he's saying, show some respect for the art. And I don't think anyone's saying you can't have fun with it and you can't joke around with it. But by all means, when it's a record like A Love Supreme and we're approaching Easter, this music is a religion. This music saved a people in the wilderness. Just like the Ten Commandments and the writings of teachings of Moses brought a people out of oppression and into Canaan, and they started to find a liberation. And by no means was the battle over. It kept happening for centuries. And they kept clinging to words, art, as a means of explaining their place and their desire for freedom. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, is a powerful thing to say in chains. And yet it's really only a man in chains that can long for freedom and even understand what it means. The way we wave the flag of freedom in this country, it's entirely propaganda. We can't even define it. And for the most part, freedom in this country is defined as the right for the rich to maneuver without the hindrance of the will of the people. That's the freedom we want. And the last thing we want is a powerful government enacting the will of the people, controlling where our taxes and our resources who go to and who gets to decide where our funding is designated. They need the freedom to do that. And we've been sold that it's some kind of a personal freedom when it's really created levels of oppression for us as our school systems and healthcare systems and infrastructure all decay. Because the greed has left Christ in the temple ready to overturn the money tables. That's where we're at. We're leaving too many people through the cracks. And I see the war in the streets that's unfolding and has been for a decade now. And it's always been there, but there's this new escalation of tension in our own streets, our own people against our own people. And the serpent will consume its own tail is one of the oldest pieces of wisdom in the human race. That Ouroboros, that symbol of the serpent consuming its tail, it dates back thousands of years, just millennia. And it's the cyclical nature of power, greed, justice, human will, and the right to be free. And every new system comes along with a great new idea. And greed concentrates the wealth into the hands of fewer and fewer. And rebirth is the eventual end of that, even though we're a long way from that. We're far too comfortable for most of us to even have any idea what that looks like. But I would just say on Easter here, people, treat jazz as sacred. Treat it as a holy ground that you need to walk on and tread upon with reverence and respect and show it the love it deserves. And I feel like this message is mostly going out to white Americans. There's black Americans who don't respect jazz or even know anything about it, which to me is a real sad tragedy in and of itself. You know, but one of the facets of oppression is for people to not know themselves. You know, to cling on to their captors' traditions stronger than their own beliefs. And I hope someday there's a reckoning in the black community where they recognize the power and importance of Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington and Count Basie. And we just get that enlightenment of the sacred ground, the holy nature of what this music was about. And I know I've expressed these thoughts with lots of African Americans, friends of mine, as a DJ, how I spoke about black music, and this includes a lot of the great R&B and soul of the 60s and 70s. And jazz was the forebearer of that, and blues is the forebearer of that. It's biblical. And I was shocked by even how a lot of my black friends who were quite college savvy intellectuals hadn't been invited into that thought process before of seeing their own black tradition as the voice of a people that had a great deal of sanctity to it. And they were all so invigorated and delighted by what I was saying. To hear that The Lord is My Shepherd I Want had a parallel in their own history of people finding a voice in the wilderness. They felt very empowered by it, and you could see the shivers on their arm, their goose pimples, as I would say how, because a lot of it came about asking what is a white boy from Canada doing playing all this R&B, all this old soul, how do you have all these old records, the jazz, how do you know all this stuff? And so that opened up the door for me to express as a musician, as a kid who was raised in Canada and raised in the church and saw some persecution myself for a number of years for my parents' beliefs. I know what it feels like to be on the outside. I know how powerful art can be as a vehicle to vent one's frustration as a musician my whole life. And I could not help but see Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye, Chuck D, all these great orators of the black experience in a biblical context. And boy, it would send shivers through them. And they would leave floating, empowered by this information. And it should be that powerful to all of us. We should recognize that, boy, this is sacred. And so I don't want to be heavy. You know, if you want to make your jokes, make your jokes. People make jokes about religions and that, all that stuff all day long. And I get it. And you can even tell a joke and not be meaning it in the most negative context that it can be perceived in, which is probably what happened. But Ken's not wrong. You know, I mean, Ken has a high level of integrity. He takes this very seriously, and it's his group. And if he doesn't want sacrilegious posts desecrating his belief system and his faith system, he has every right to say, please, let's not mock these great men in the presence of my eyes. Keep that to your own groups. And I'll say the same for my Facebook groups, the Jazz Vinyl Club. There's thousands of members there. If you're not a member, please join. It's a great group. A lot of great records are posted every day, great dialogue. Also, there's a Blue Note vinyl group. I'll try to remember to put links to both those in the description today. They're both great groups, and they both have a lot of great members, thousands of members that you can talk to, ask questions, and post your own records, which is the fun of it, you know. We're listening right now to Grant Green, Sunday Morning, which felt like an important and coherent record to play today in light of it being Easter. I love Grant's guttural playing. And as I said in my guitar series, I think of all the jazz guitarists, he's the darkest, the most... It's not a musical thing I'm talking about. It's an emoting thing. He emotes a very heavy message of change, and like I don't feel there's an anger in him like a Lee Morgan. It feels more of a positive confrontation of chaos and dissonance, and just a willingness to play the blues and to apply it liberally until we feel the medication sinking in. And I feel there's times where his solos, they don't just go on and on. They're painting the ugly. And brushstroke after brushstroke, it's cleaning up the mess. I love Grant Green. Like I said, he's maybe not the player of a Wes Montgomery or George Benson. He's definitely got a simplicity and single note approach that's, you know, rooted in bebop, of course, but it's also just so rooted in the blues and the church. And it just so coincides with what I'm saying today. People seem to be enjoying that series on a look into how to build a label, this library. The Impulse one was really successful. which makes me very happy. And I kind of thought it would be. The Riverside one has done about half that. And I did a Bethlehem one yesterday, the other day. That was really good. I'm disappointed more people don't watch some of the more obscure labels. And I get it, you often don't want to watch something you don't know nothing about. But Bethlehem is worth learning about. And you will see a lot of those records in the wild. And if you wait to buy a Hank D'Amico 10-inch when you're looking for it, you'll look for a long time. If you know about that stuff ahead of time from watching the video like that, when you see it, you'll be like, oh, that Bethlehem 10-inch for $8, I should probably grab this. And yes, you should. It's outstanding stuff. So watch the Bethlehem if you haven't watched it. I think it's definitely a worthwhile exercise. Bottom line is, we have to remember that this music isn't just about notes and about raising your eyebrow, trying to shock your friends with some dissonant saxophone honking. That represents a last final gasp of the music. The music itself was a center of joy, a form of salvation, a healing, a coming together. One of its most powerful entities was the way it brought black and white together, both mentally, spiritually, and physically. There was a lot of people interbreeding because of jazz music for a century, and of course that's always been a problem. The white dads don't want to see their daughters with black men, and they created a path where that's what their daughters want to do eventually, despite you. The sooner we breed color and race out of this mess, the better off we'll be. We obviously are one people initially, and to just be done with that silly nonsense and notion. But alas, here we still are in 2021. Can you believe it? Easter's come. Cheers to all my friends who are spiritual in that sense, whether they be Catholic, Protestant. Blessings to all of you. I myself don't adhere to that path. My Creator loves all men and all things. He created all people on this planet, and he has a love and has chosen to be a love for all this creation, not just one people, not just one race. It's available to everybody. And until we have a human spirituality that sees us as one, regardless of regional migration and historical context, to think that the Creator only chose one section of this planet that he created to redeem and save only this one people, you have to have never been over the hills and the rivers and the seas to believe in that stuff. So to be here today in 2021 and thinking that my Creator only loves me and my people, my race, my nation, my creed, it's beyond my spiritual scope. Because my Creator loves everybody, regardless of sexuality, race, religion. I believe firmly that we all have his name wrong, or her name wrong. We need to just be more unified in our spirituality and have empathy and understanding for all people. And I think that's what the Creator wants from us. And I think that the Creator, my mom worries about my soul a lot because I'm not a quote-unquote Christian. And yet I feel like I'm on good terms with the Creator. We speak all the time, and I feel like he will recognize and redeem my honest look into this spiritual life on this planet. I'm not seeking. I'm seeking for it. But my answers are saying there's a bigger, broader understanding to who we are as a people, and that possible spirituality and consciousness than anything the ancients ever envisioned. And the Hindus are probably the closest to it, with some of what they write about, much longer than any of the other texts of any of the other religions on this planet. And like I said, the religion that do divide us, it wouldn't divide us so greatly if we had equal economics. If Palestinians and Israelis had the same opportunities, same schooling, same international funding for their cities, there wouldn't be no need to throw rocks and missiles. But as long as that disparity exists, There's always going to be an unease as you close your gates and the hungry masses are left huddled outside. That will always create tension. And those of you who don't see it and just want to be locked in your gated, gilded kingdom, you put your own future at risk. You put your own children at risk because you will become a target. And so by all means, share, care for your fellow man, put more love into the world than you take out. Love is a powerful thing. And it's easy to love what we understand. And we can only have empathy for what we understand. So never stop learning. Never stop grasping and seeking and looking for bigger truths. The moment we stop growing and stop seeking for truth, the moment we become stagnant, that water becomes undrinkable. We need to keep moving. And that's my prayer today, is that we can all just keep growing, keeping our eyes and hearts open, and putting aside the small things that divide us and recognizing there's a whole lot more that unites us, starting with that little blue marble through the black emptiness of space. Boy, it just points out how vulnerable we are. So again, y'all be safe. Happy Easter to everybody. We're going to jump back into how to build label collections coming real soon. A couple days, we'll still do the next one. I'm not sure which one I'm going to do yet. I have a lot of different labels I want to talk about. We'll talk to y'all soon. Be safe. Thanks.